See, here's the thing, man. It doesn't matter who's having a failed relationship. It doesn't matter which part of the world. One thing is same everywhere in the world, and that is the other person completely screwed up in the relationship. I am yet to meet a person who would come out and say, "Hey, listen, he did something wrong, I did something wrong, and we screwed up." Never. In my personal experience, it's exactly been the same. And in one case, this one particular case I do want to mention, actually in every case, I always ask whenever there's things are messing up, and I say, "Hey, listen, who do you think screwed up?" Yeah. And I wait for that beautiful answer which would say, we both screwed up. No, it's always me or the other person. We all have a charge sheet against the other person. And guess what's interesting? Both parties have a charge sheet against the other person. And that charge sheet is almost 80% valid, 20% exaggeration, 80% valid, which proves from this person's perspective, the other person's guilty, the other person's perspective, this person, and they're both guilty. Yet nobody ever takes any bit of the blame. And in my world, the moment you do that, I bail out. That's it. Because that is a guarantee for a continuous failed relation. You know what? If you can't ever admit that you did something wrong, you will never see the need to fix it. The first step to fixing any failure is admitting there was a failure. And if the other person was the only person responsible for a screw up, that means you never have anything to do, nothing to change. And a person like that, cut them out of your life, man. I'm harsh, I'm cold, brutal, but you know what? It's not going to work.
I don't think it's really that brutal. I don't think it's that brutal. I think it's actually saying what needs to be said. Because I think a lot of times we dance around this, and the reason that we dance around these topics is because if we actually come out and admit that we did something wrong, well, how could I possibly, be viewed? How will I be viewed after? I think it's also that if I come out and say that I did something wrong or that I participated in the breakup, I had an equal part in it, and I'm just going to come out and say, you know what, whenever a breakup happens, it's always 50-50. There might be an event or a situation that was kind of the catalyst or the tipping point, but it always takes two people to succeed or fail whenever you're talking about a romantic relationship. It just simply does. Yeah. So I'm actually looking for, I came up with something, I'm looking for this old note that I had, but basically it says something to the effect of, until you heal from your own wounds, you will bleed all over everyone and everything until you get it fixed. And so basically, you'll even basically crap on the people that are trying to help you. So, and again, we're not talking about the busybodies. We addressed busybodies yesterday and how detrimental they can be. It's just simply that when we think about it, what I want to come out and say, that if you want to take and have a successful relationship, I think we all have to admit, hey, I had a relationship, it failed, I had my own part, but until you will never have a successful relationship, until you are able to answer the question of, how did I throw fuel on this fire? Until you own your own role in it and stop going, well, I wouldn't have done this. It's not everything is a cause and effect. Well, I wouldn't have acted this way had they not done this. No. Do you want a better relationship or not in the future? And until you answer this question, how did I create this breakup? You'll never move forward. I'll just come right out and say it. There is no way to sugarcoat that. You will not move forward. And you can move forward into the next one. Here's the deal. And I've worked with a lot of divorce attorneys over the years who have sent me clients, and here's the reality. Most of the people that have been married 3 times, they end up marrying the exact same person. When you get to the 4th or the 5th, now you've started, you've learned some things and so forth and so forth. So the first 3 marriages, you typically marry the exact same person, which means that you haven't fixed your shit.
Yeah. Okay, and I'm going to extend that. And that shit could be that you chose wrong.
Correct.
And people will not even admit. Yeah. Even though that still absolves them of any wrongdoing. Yeah. I chose an asshole. They will not even. Oh, I chose right. I chose good. I chose okay. this person changed and turned out to be, I mean, if you go back, hindsight, they always telltale signs. Even if one person is a saint, the other a complete sinner, well, then, even the saint who got, in the relationship, you picked a sinner, you chose a sinner, even that is a mistake. And nobody would ever admit even to that mistake. That is the funny part about this.
Interesting. Yeah. Bushra, I see your
I mean,
comment.
they won't even take the blame. They won't even take the blame, while the blame can be shifted to the other person, as long as you own up that, I had anything to do, even if it was positive in the screw up. They won't even say I had anything positive to do. They would say I did nothing.
Uh-huh.
It just happened by itself.
Yeah.
Self-destructed.
Well, you think about it, man. I mean, who always gets the most sympathy? Who gets the most attention, truly? The winner or the victim? Right? And that's, and it's always the victim. And I think it's really, really interesting of how much, how much victimology ends up coming into our relationships and stuff. Rafi is saying that you look blurry. I don't.
No, for a moment, my camera was autofocusing. I'm all right now.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so I just think that, again, I'm going to go back and say this, is that unless you take and acknowledge your role in the overall outcome of not saying that, and there are certain situations where somebody may be more wrong. It's always a chain of events. There's always a sequence of events in dealing with enough couples. As soon as I get enough information, I'm like, oh, okay, you can map it out. Like, oh, wow, you can see right here where everything came off the rails. Look, when we're in the situation, we're too associated. We're too in it. And so it's important to kind of like, after the relationship is done, when it's done and you've already cried and you've lamented the other person and, oh, poor me, and, the wailing and the gnashing of teeth, you have to take and still like say, okay, well, what do I want in the future? And it's usually in the second and the third relationships, it's usually, well, I don't want that, but we're not talking about what it is that we want. We always have to want something positive as opposed to not wanting a negative outcome. So I keep going back to this, and until you can answer that question, how did I put myself in this situation? And that's with everything. Every single thing. That's true ownership. It's not, and listen, all you have to do is ask the question, and you have to seriously explore it. It doesn't mean that you always participated, but that's where you need to start when you're trying to figure things out.
It's not just the ownership. The thing is, in a screw up, more than one person needs to make a change. Now, even if I take the higher ground and say I did nothing wrong, I will have to admit that maybe I've chosen the wrong person, maybe I shouldn't be with the person. I won't even admit that, because the moment I admit that I have any participation in the current situation, then the onus of doing something would fall upon me. If the other person's 80% wrong, even if I'm 20 wrong, I will have to do 20% of the work to fix the situation. So I will always stick to 0. I chose right, I did nothing wrong, everything is fine. I have to do nothing, I'm just a complete innocent victim.
Right.
And that for me is that one flag. The moment that goes up, end this right away. You cannot change a person who does not take ownership. I'm not even saying of their mistake, who do not take ownership of accept participation in a situation. People, well, most of the time, 90% of the time, people would say this whole situation, I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even there. I was asleep, and when I woke up, this thing had happened. I had nothing. As a result, there is nothing that I need to do. It's not ego. It is just the fact that we don't want to do anything to fix the situation. And these are the people who will never, ever heal their relationship, will make an effort or do something that will make things go forward. And these are the kind of people who need to be, you got to cut them off, man.
Absolutely.
Because no matter what you do, no matter what a counselor does, no matter what a healer does, no matter what a therapist does, this person, even if in a situation they're forced to admit, they will indirectly admit, maybe I did something, I apologize if I made you feel bad, kind of, stupid things we've already talked about in the past shows.
Yep.
These are the people who will make sure that every time there is a situation, they screw shit up, man.
Yeah, and I agree. And really what it comes down to is it is really, really important to remember that every time you're pointing your finger at somebody else, there's 3 pointing back at you. So if you're going to take and lay blame on somebody else, there's a good chance you've done the same thing. I think we take and make levels. And here's an example I use is we take and make levels of sin, right? Or of grievances. So, like cheating, that's the ultimate sin. But if I tell you to F off 3 times, then that's the same as that once. So we always try to place these value judgments on different behaviors instead of saying, what is it that I truly want? Do I want to focus on the bad behavior or do I want to move forward? Too often times being the victim, that allows us to stay mad. It allows us to take and figure out a way to exonerate our own actions. So when we stop trying to excuse our own role in this situation, that's truly the only way that we can move forward. I finally found this, so I wanted to share this really quickly.
Yeah.
So until you fix what's broken, you'll continue to bleed on everyone around you, including those trying to help. And I can't. Yeah. I mean, I posted this a while back, and I got a lot of negative feedback, like, oh, that's not nice. It's not intended to be nice. I think in too many ways we try to sugarcoat things that really should just be more egregious than what they are. And I'm going to be very honest. We need to look at our own behaviors with the same lens that we look at everybody else's.
Like Rafi is already saying, it's called laziness. No, it's not laziness. It's not ego. It's nothing. It's people who are not vested enough into the relationship. It is people who feel they don't need the relationship. Because whenever you need something, man, bad enough, you will make the effort to make it work. And anyone who does not admit it, anyone who does not take any responsibility for making a relationship work and move forward, they're the kind of people who are not really interested in the situation. Whether they want to hear it or not, the bottom line is they don't really care. They're not interested. So they're willing to screw it all up. They're willing to, as long as they don't have to do anything, any price is not high enough. They can pay any price as long as I don't have to do anything. As long as I don't have to fix the situation. As long as I do not have to participate in the healing process. If you don't have to participate in the healing process, then you know what? Then frankly, you don't have a stake in the process. Because the moment you have a stake, in there, you will do anything. You will work together and say, listen, hey, you do this, I'll do this. You're the bigger asshole, you take 80%, I'll take 20%. But they say, no load on me. I have no stake in this shit, so I have nothing to do. You fix it, you make it work. If it works, I'll stick around. If it doesn't, I'm out of here.
Well, and I'm just going to come out and say, I've heard some, that when we talk about, like, sometimes in life, we screw up. We just screw up that has absolutely nothing to do with our relationship, nothing to do with our partner, nothing to do with any of that. It's a completely different context. I know people that they ended up, they got fired from their job, and then they end up getting a divorce shortly after. Now, of course, there's a lot that goes into all of that. My point is that we take and go, whoa, instead of saying, wow, my partner is struggling, my partner lost their job. Now it's like, well, screw you. See, you can't even hold a job. I'm out. So I'm gonna come out and say it. We look for opportunities. Human nature is to look for opportunities to be a victim. And because once we become a victim, now we absolve ourselves of our own behavior. We take and exonerate our own actions, and we're able to take and place all of the ownership of the situation on the other person. Well, I wouldn't have divorced you had you kept your job. I wouldn't have had to look around had you been giving me enough sex. I can do this. So we continue to just create these bullshit excuses instead of going, wow, my partner is really hurting. Or hey, I'm just going to say, and this takes an elevated person. If you want to go, oh, my husband cheated, I'm not saying anybody else can make their partner cheat. I am simply going to say, if my wife cheated on me, the first question I need to ask myself is, What did I do to perpetuate this? What did I do to create this? Because what's important is the relationship that we've created, and the life and everything that we've created together. We get so hung up on one bad act or something like that, as opposed to what is it that we're trying to create. And a lot of times, listen, even in business, we try to create something and we fuck up along the way. That's okay. Like, we need to chill out on each other. We need to stop trying to play the victim. We need to stop figuring out ways to blame our partner for our own unhappiness, and say, hey, we're in this together. Let's create a solution together. You lost your job? Okay. And I'm not saying, please hear me. This is simply a matter of trying to have a better relationship and a better lifestyle and an elevated life. If you ask yourself, how did I create this? What role did I play in this outcome? With cheating, with anything else, even when somebody hurts you. I mean, I just had somebody say, and I did, and somebody got really pissed off. They said, oh, this guy came up to me and he at work, this was a workplace situation, and the guy got punched in the nose. He got punched in the nose. And so he's like, well, that's not fair, and I should get like payment and all this. And my question to him was, I said, really? Okay. I said, how did you put yourself in that situation? Well, there's never any excuse for violence. Nobody's saying that there's an excuse for it. How did you put yourself in that situation? I said, well, let's go back to the tapes, because here you said this. Here your body language was this. Oh, yeah. That's why. So it's not that you deserve to get hit. It's not that you deserve to get cheated on. It's that until you can take and answer that question, you know what? Like, I'm just going to say, I was traveling. I'm traveling abroad. I went into an area I was told not to go to. And guess what? I got robbed. I got held up and mugged. I got robbed. So guess what? What do you think I did? These mother effers, they're so bad to me. The truth was, if I had asked that question myself, I'd have gone, wow, I would have never gone into that area that everybody told me not to go into.
However, I'm going to put in a disclaimer sort of thing here, that unless, of course, you could be stuck in a situation where the other person is just screwed up, a person who beats you up. There's nothing you could have done to justify that, because what you were talking about could immediately become a trajectory towards rape. You shouldn't have worn this. You shouldn't have gone there.
Yeah, so but I'm not talking about that. I get it.
I know. I'm just clarifying for the purpose of, for the reason for people watching. I don't want to be twisted wrong. Unless if you're in a situation of a crime, of abuse, of people who are just dangerous, that is, our points are for normal, general circumstances, not for specific situations which involve crimes and just bad people. So right. That is out. We're talking about under normal circumstances.
Absolutely.
People who don't make this effort, people who are trying to find reasons to absolve themselves, are not just trying to save themselves from the responsibility of doing anything, but they also, I think, telling the other person in one way or the other that they want out. Because if somebody wanted in, possibly, somebody wanted to go, this is one way of basically forcing the other person to say, to take the exit, so you don't even take the blame for the exit. It's not just that I don't want to try, I'm stupid about it. No, it's that I think anybody who wants to stay in a situation will solve it, will make some effort. People who never make the effort, and I don't know, you would have more experiences. You do, a lot of therapy, and you see people other than the two of us. And my experience, these are people who are really looking for a reason to get out of the situation, get out of the relationship, but they just don't want to take they don't want to take ownership even of that. So they're creating an environment where the other person will be forced to make that move and say, oh, look at this guy. Oh, she left me. Oh, he left me. Oh, she walked away. Whereas, I would have probably created that environment which forced her to walk away. Now, in Buddhism, the first thing, when you sort of getting initiated, the first question is, who are you? And I'm an architect. Now, who are you? And you keep doing this until the person reaches to the point where it says, well, I'm the consciousness watching this shit show. I'm nobody, but I'm the consciousness. Game of Thrones, who are you? I'm nobody. You have to go to the nobody level. So in a relationship, whenever somebody says this happened, there has to be a loop of why. Why did it happen? And until you can reverse engineer it to yourself, you will never find a solution. You have to keep every line, the other person, why? Oh, he hit me, why? Oh, he was cheating, why? Why did he cheat? He came home late, why? Oh, she doesn't talk to me, why? Why does she not talk to you? She doesn't want to be with me. Why does she not want to be with me?
You're not asking this question to yourself to assign blame to yourself. You're doing it to go, whoa, man, I can see how I misstepped here. That's the only way that we can continue to be elevated and on that path to enlightenment, right? And I'm just going to...
It's called reverse engineering. You're reverse engineering, basically.
I'm going to, like, these waiting, buddy, when you're like, when you're like, oh, I don't want to get involved in this, or that's on you. I mean, I'm just going to say the biggest thing that I can say in this that I've seen is when we don't act, when we don't communicate, we set the other one up to fail. Now what you've already said it. It's almost like, listen, I mean, and I do this in a business setting, is that, hey, you know what, if I really don't want to keep you and I don't, there's performance issues and I don't have a way to take and terminate you, I'll change the policies. And I guarantee within a week you'll step in it. Like, that's just the way it goes. I'm going to say that we sometimes subconsciously sabotage our own relationships by doing this because we unintentionally set the other one up to fail so that we can have an out. Like, I'm just going to suggest, if you want out, just be honest. I would say in dealing with couples, the best thing I've ever heard when I would deal with couples, and I met with a couple about a year ago, and they had been divorced 5 years, and they just wanted to communicate better for their children's sake. And it just was like, I'm like, so tell me, why did you guys end up getting a divorce? They're like, you know what? We just decided we wanted different things out of life. I'm like, perfect. That's honest.
Thank you.
That's honest. Like,
and nothing wrong with it.
No, like we end up owning other people's expectations. We end up owning cultural expectations. That honestly, like I'll tell you, I've lived in a world like that where all of these expectations were present, and it was mind-numbing. It was a horrible quality of life for me. Like it was terrible for me. And what did I do? I looked for a way out. So I'm just going to say, when we set these things in motion, there's a concept known as fruit of the poisonous tree. And so once we put something into motion, everything from that point on is poisoned. Everything.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Comments, my friend?
Absolutely.
Let me just block the idiots because now we have a no bullshit policy here. All right. Usually both. People cultivate. Yeah, okay.
Sure.
I think you do not mean that about yourself. You're saying generally, I suppose.
Right on, Bushra. Thank you. I screw up all the time.
I have no doubt. About that, love.
Hey, Rafia, if you're not screwing up, you're not living, and you're not trying, and you're not growing. So good for you. Economic failure is a main cause. Iqbal, I'm not really sure. There's a lot of causes. I think we always try to look for the origin of something, and sometimes we just can't. It comes down to, some of these, subconscious qualities that we carry around with us. And I don't know, money is not going to be the reason that my relationship, but neither would jealousy. There's other reasons. So I think it's different for each people.
Okay.
Yeah. One person.
Like upon the other, I do agree.
Yeah, Bushra, I understand what you're saying, and what I'm going to say to that in response to that is, well, why is there such an inequality? Why is there such an imbalance of power? Like that, this is really strange to me because that's not equality, and that's not an equitable type of a relationship. I mean, I don't understand that. Accountability is important. I am right does absolutely destroy a relationship. But that I think is based more in selfishness and self-preservation, in that we don't want to admit to ourselves that we're wrong. I'll tell you, admitting it, like literally coming out and going, man, I really effed that up bad. That is liberating. It's liberating. Because now you're not living with the shame of it, and you can actually, it gives you choices in how to take it and move forward in a different direction. So I understand what you're saying. The beautiful thing about this, Bushra, is we can agree to disagree. These types of topics, right? So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, Bushra, I think I'm not sure what the context was, but I just, off the bat, I would say, I think what I meant was your first relationship, again, generally speaking, unless if it's a complete disaster, then get out the next morning. But, if you don't really evaluate and make sure that you've got everything right, then like Dennis said, first 3 relationships will keep picking the same person, you'll keep making the same mistakes, you'll keep doing the same thing over and again. The very first time that you get into one, you should really give it your best shot. You should try to make it work because you don't have the history and the experience of knowing how you screw up. And you also don't have the history and experience of knowing how other people screw up. So if you're too hasty in assuming something is wrong, you could lose on a fantastic opportunity, a fantastic relationship, because you're just young, naive, inexperienced. Yeah. As you go to your 85th relationship, God forbid, you would know yourself much better and you would know people much better. But so the first one, you should give it time. You should try all aspects on yourself as well as the other person, because you need to become before you can. It's like anything else. It's like playing tennis. You go slow. Next time you go faster. God forbid you would have more than one relationship. Dennis is smiling as I'm saying this.
No, I'm smiling because
but shit happens in this life, and if it does, I would say, give your first one reason enough to be sure that you've tried everything on yourself and the other person. Otherwise, you could look back and regret.
It's the reason I'm smiling is I was mandated when I was still with the fire department. They used to bring in people to come and talk to us about life issues and stuff like that. Right. Anyway, one of them was a marriage person, because in the profession that I came from, our divorce rate was about 88 to 92%. So it was a very, very high divorce rate in the field I came from. And one of the things that was said was one of the marriage counselors that came in to teach us. It was just so ridiculous. They talked about don't attach a lot of emotion, don't attach hopes and dreams or emotions or anything to your first marriage.
That guy must be.
Your first marriage is only.
He must be really bitter, man.
Your first marriage is only there to make you so that you know what you want in your permanent spouse. I'm like,
the fuck, man.
So, hey, you know what? Different philosophies for different folks, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I did like this saying goes, takes 2 hands to clap, meaning that most of the times both are to blame. In some way, shape, or form, absolutely. It's rare that one person just being an a-hole. I agree. I agree, and I think a lot of times we're a-holes, and even though I can tell you April doesn't acknowledge every single time I'm an a-hole. She just doesn't. And why? Because then we get bogged down in our bad behavior. And if all we do is look at bad behavior, I'm telling you, she and I would never move forward at all, because we're human. Our humanness always shows through in different times. So I just want to take this one as well, because this is really funny. I cannot ignore that nickname, Dickish Ginormous, because that's hysterical. Thank you so much. That's great. I appreciate that.
All right. Irfan has another comment. There are two wrong types of people in a relationship. The type who says it's never their fault, even if it is their fault. To the type who don't love themselves, and so always blame themselves, even if it's not. Well, the other kinds of people, but these two are interesting. Yeah. The first one we've talked about. The second one maybe we need to talk about too, at some point.
Don't love themselves. So Irfan, what I believe you're referring to is people pleasing, and people that are prone to people pleasing, they own, right? They own that. Oh, it's my fault. It's always their fault because somebody else was unhappy. So people pleasing, that affects our relationships, our jobs, everything. So yeah, I completely agree. Thank you.
Maybe that's a topic. It's actually a long-term screw up if you base a relationship on apologizing for somebody else's conduct then you're basically setting the frame, setting the game where the other person would never feel the need to take responsibility. And you will spend your life always taking responsibility for whatever bloody happens in a relationship. So that's a very bad foundation. Okay.
That's funny. I was just reading that one. I'm trying to understand that.
What does staying mad doing? You're only mad because you don't want to move forward and you want to harbor a grudge for no reason. Admittedly, I've done that, but I don't care anymore. Well, I always say to people, people who complain that I fight too much, I say, worry when I stop fighting, because that would basically mean I don't give a fuck about you anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm fighting only because I care. So like Rafi has just said, admittedly, I've done that, but I don't care anymore. That's the thing. When you stop caring, you stop fighting. But fighting constructively and fighting destructively are completely different things. Maybe that's a topic as well. How to fight.
Of course, yeah.
Constructive fighting and destructive fighting.
And actually, if anybody wants to know about that, April and I have a video. It's on my YouTube channel. And please go and look that up. It's about the rules of engagement. That's literally what it's called, rules of engagement. Go to my YouTube channel, and you will find that video. It's about 30 minutes long. Bushra, I completely agree. Well, they're done with the BS. I don't know if you mean that they're done with their own BS or the other person's BS. It's not. I just don't think. Sometimes things just don't work, and we're always looking. And I'm going to say, coming from mental health, I mean, in medical field, we're always looking for the origin. Sometimes things just don't work. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. I think we put too much attachment on the why instead of going, hey, it just didn't work. Let's call it a day and let's move forward. So I just think that we try to put so much into these things that might not be what we think that they are in the first place.
Okay, now one thing I would say is it's only fair that when you check out because of whatever reason, always communicate with clarity that I'm done, thank you very much, no more of this. Don't ghost people. That's not nice. If you're out,
that's chicken.
Get out and make it very clear. Yeah. Don't break up. Fix the problem. Start the romance again. Go on dates again. Work on winning each other over again. It takes two to tango. Doesn't always work. The other person, if it's non-cooperative, I'm sorry, it doesn't work out.
You know what, Bushra, I'm sorry, Kushbu, friend, I like this. I like that can-do attitude. And what I'm going to just say to this, I totally agree. I'm just going to qualify that statement with, sometimes you got to set some benchmarks and go, hey, we're just not ever hitting this. It depends on, do we want to continue? Do we want to keep at this? And can we do it in a way that's healthy and mutually beneficial? I just think that in a lot of times in relationships, not just romantic ones, but our employment relationships, our friend relationships, if we focus on adding mutual value and benefit, mutual means both parties. I'll just come out and say it, barring an egregious act or something. Relationships typically fail because either it's just time. Not everybody is supposed to be in our life forever. Or it's selfishness. And selfishness plays a big part of it, but selfishness, self-centeredness, that plays a big part in a lot of our failed outcomes or our self-sabotage patterns, right? So thanks, Kushbu. I really appreciate that. Yeah, breaking up isn't the only answer. It really just depends on what you want. Perfect.
Yeah, and also depends on the other person. It's not just... Okay, the thing that really bothers me is that emotional abuse is so intangible, you remain in it without any kind of... As compared to physical abuse, emotional abuse is... Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Intangible to who, Bushra? Who's it intangible to? Everybody else around because I'm not walking around with a bruise? I know what it is. I know when I'm being emotionally abused. Just because nobody else can see it, I think it is tangible. It might not be tangible for everybody else to see, but I don't need to justify to anybody else why my marriage is working or not working. That's all I want to say to that is, and emotional abuse sucks. Look, a bruise will heal. A lot of times words don't.
Okay, I'm going to fast forward to this is a courtship period. As most people get attached to the idea of romance. Yeah, courtship can be blinding. Courtship can be stupid. Yeah, that's what seeds, like we just talked about, if somebody's apologizing for no reason, that's in the courtship period. You're seeding a poisonous tree by making the mistakes in it because you set the rules of the game for the long term. So yeah, it has to be done very carefully. And yeah, the courtship period is very tricky. Maybe that's a long topic. Dennis, any comments on this one?
No, not on that one. You know, courtship is yeah, I mean that's a great time of the relationship. I mean, isn't it? It's the fun, it's the excitement, it's the lust, it's the passion, it's all of that. And I mean that's a cool part of it. And I think, you know, in a long-term relationship, it's figuring out ways to reignite that courtship period. So I did want to take this one because this is exactly what I was talking about. Becoming a victim helps us walk away from our own accountability. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely, Bushra. Thank you so much for reiterating that point. You know, I'm always I love criticism, but I always like to promote people that agree with me too, because I'm kind of arrogant that way.
Simi Durrani says breakup breaks you to rebuild and reshape into more strong and different person. It's up to us that how we deal with it. Go for another breakup. That's right after Rafia's heart, huh? And even mine for that matter. Yeah, don't let it hold you back, man. Shit happens. Did I miss anything, Dennis? Are we done?
No, I think. What was this one here? Nope. Breakups. No, I think that's it. I think that we've really hit this. You know,
I just upset.
Yeah.
Simi just said this: courtship is nothing but deception. Well, sort of, yeah. Not really, but sort of.
I think it's perspective. I mean, there's a difference in courtship when you're like, you know, in your teens versus like 30. I mean, it just depends on what you want out of life. So, but hey, I really appreciate everybody's participation. You know, relationships, you know, to kind of summarize, they're tricky. They're tricky. And I think if you just remember a couple of things, your relationship, it might not be perfect, and there's always going to be those little things that make us struggle and stuff. But if we just simply remember to serve the other one the way they need to be served, speak to them the way they need to be spoken to, and provide stories of care for them, like we'll always be able to come to some sort of a resolution. It's not all love and everything else. I highly, highly recommend the most important thing in any relationship, view your partner as a human first. As a human first. Yeah. If you wouldn't treat somebody else that way, then don't treat your partner that way, because the problem or the challenge that comes in relationships is a sense of entitlement. It's like I've said, I can say anything I want to April if I set it up properly, if I frame it. So we'll get more into communication techniques as we go. But thank you guys so much, you know, for participating. Right. Thank you.
And you all have a good weekend. See you Monday.
See you Monday.